Hey everyone, welcome to the DarkCast. I'm your host, Jonathan Miley. It's the end of the year and I am so happy to be bringing you our Games of 2018 discussion. Beyond the holidays, this is why this is my favorite time of year. In this episode, I'm talking with 4 writers about 4 of the best games of 2018. In Section 1, I spoke with Ed Bobincheck about Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. In Section 2, I talked to David Silbert about Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and in Section 3, I spoke with John Kay about Don't Starve, Hamlet. Finally, in Section 4, I talked to Gregory Wright about God of War 4. In each of the sections, we also talk about that writer's favorite game released before 2018 that they only just now got a chance to play. You can find the timestamps for each section as well as more information about the things that we discuss in the show notes to this episode, which you can find on darkstation.com. There you can also find the DarkCast interview series, as well as video game reviews, previews, and features. Be sure to stay tuned to the website as we have our writers' top 5 lists for 2018 going up throughout the month of December. If you want to find out more about the show, you can subscribe to us on iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter at darkstation_com, find us on Facebook, and email us at podcast@darkstation.com. As always, thank you so much for listening. Now on with the show. Welcome back to the DarkCast, everybody. I'm Jonathan Miley. Joining me today is Ed Bobincheck. Is that how your name's? All right, fantastic. It's exactly the way it's spelled. Fantastic. How are you doing, Ed?
Doing all right. You took the words out of my mouth with that, too. That's how I tell everyone.
We're here to talk about some of our favorite games of the year because, crazily enough, 2018 is almost over, and I'm not sure where it went. But it's gone, so it's time to do what we do at the end of the year and make lists of things because that's fun. So what are we talking about today, Ed?
We're going to talk about probably actually going to be my game of the year, Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. Okay.
Now I feel like a lot of people hear you say Monster Hunter and assume you're going to finish that phrase with the word world. Because that was a pretty popular game earlier this year. Did you play World?
I did. I picked it up at launch, special edition. I got my Nier Gigante statue in my man cave, right next to the pop figure I picked up when I got it. And I played a good amount of it, but one of the reasons why I'm giving Generations Ultimate the nod over World for me is both the content and just the end game, just how expansive it is. Because I enjoyed World. I thought the story's great. I've been playing since 3 Ultimate. I played every game since, and so I'm not as veteran as the originals, but I've logged in a good few thousand hours into all the titles, and I played World. And I think it's a great way to move the franchise forward and keep it both in the roots of Monster Hunter and make it more accessible to players. But Generations Ultimate, to me, was the better game because I won't lie, I played it last year in Japanese Monster Hunter XX. When I got my Switch, my friend gave me his Japanese physical copy, and I logged a good few hundred hours into that despite not knowing any Japanese.
Wow. That's impressive.
Google Translate is a heck of a tool. Plus, if you play the other games, it's easy enough to figure out a lot of the things. And one of the nice things about Monster Hunter is that it is there's a lot of non-verbal things in there, or enough distinctions that you can tell things apart.
Okay. Very cool. So what, for people that don't know a lot about Monster Hunter, what is Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate?
So it's it's the last game in the old style of Monster Hunter, and it's basically it's a boss rush kind of game. So you take on a quest for hunting any number of monsters. Well, there's a few number of monsters, but so many monsters, a certain monster, or a few of them, or this game, unlike World, will have a lot of the smaller quests. So you might have to collect, 10 unique mushrooms, or you need to kill 30 Conchu. And you go into the map, and there's little sections, and you solve the task, and then you get a bunch of items, and you use those items to build new weapons and armor, which allow you to then hunt and take on harder quests, and so on and so forth. So you build yourself up by taking on challenge after challenge and using those rewards and funneling it in towards your strength.
So I don't know a lot about Monster Hunter. It's intimidated the crap out of me. I've never even tried to play any of them. How does all of that differ from World?
So one thing World did was it opened up the full map. So when you go into the quest, you have access from every access with no loading points. What World does, or that's what World kind of opened up the whole thing and made it more of a living environment. So you're one piece of this full ecosystem. The old school of Monster Hunter was more of like arena battles. So each little area is separate, and monsters will go from area to area, and that's how you follow them, you hunt them down, and you'd hunt them and fight them in this one particular area. So it's more, and the regions change, the battlegrounds change, there's elevations, you've got, some of them have featured water, which a lot of the fans don't like, I was indifferent on, but in this one there's none. But it's just more of like a, one-on-one battle, inside of an arena versus World, which is more of you entering this ecosystem and clearing intruders or hunting down things and almost being the intruder into this, as they call it, a world.
Okay. Gotcha. Whereas the older style of Monster Hunter, it's more just level-based in a way, like any other game, as opposed to being a sandbox or open world.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, whenever I hear people talk about having to log like hundreds of hours into a game before you like start to get good at it, then I'm just like, I can't. I have a semi seizure, and it just.
I'll actually disagree with that. I don't think you need to log hundreds of hours to be good. It really is a mind over matter thing, because I've played 3 Ultimate hundreds of hours. I've played 4 Ultimate hundreds of hours. I played the first generation's hundreds of hours, and I've played Double X hundreds of hours. Heck, I've played this game before, and I still go into challenges. I'll fail, I'll be intimidated, and I'll kind of avoid it. I'll do a bunch of older quests that I avoided for a while. I'm overpowered on. It's more of a mind over matter, because once you realize that you can do it, that's really the biggest hurdle to get over. It's all that mental aspect. You got to go in, and you can't be afraid. You got to just go in there and try it, because you're not going to get better until you try it, But it's not. You don't need hundreds of hours. You just need to find the right little groove. Get to your groove. It's like a quarterback. If they get that out of rhythm, they're going to look really bad. But once they get in there, once they kind of hit that, they're solid. They're good. You get a little break, but you go back in.
Okay.
And another feature about it, too, is that it's also about being prepared. Because, Dark Souls, I said prepare to die, but this is prepare to survive, I would say. You can go into any quest, at any point, and you can do really good, or you can do really bad. It all depends on what weapon you've got equipped and what armor you've got equipped. And I think that's the biggest hurdle. And that's actually what I like about World, was they took away a lot of that stress at times, where every item will give you some benefit. Where in Generations Ultimate, you can look super cool, But if you don't get all those skill points added up right, you're going to have no skills. You're going to have lower, resistances, and you're just going to get wrecked.
Interesting. Well, we'll see next year, because I have a feeling I'm probably going to buy the new Monster Hunter because they're bringing Geralt of Rivia from The Witcher into it, and I have a bizarre compulsion to buy everything that is attached to The Witcher multiple times. So I'll probably buy that.
I'm looking forward to next year for World. I really am. I think they're going to have a big thing, and it's one thing I love about the Monster Hunter franchise. Because I learned this about Capcom, is it's one company, but each Street Fighter, that's its own little studio inside of Capcom. Monster Hunter is its own studio inside of Capcom. So, you might hear about the bad things Capcom has done, but you don't hear about a lot of these good things that Monster Hunter really does. I mean, I don't even know if it's going to be paid yet or not, but all this DLC that I've had so far has been free. And I love that they extend the lives of their games so well.
Sure.
Don't like a lot of the timed events in World. That's one thing I think Generations Ultimate does better. Is that
what?
So World has a lot of different events. They've had like the spring event, the winter event, all these things, which is really cool. But one thing about the older games is when they had DLC, it's a forever quest. Now they're very difficult. I tend to avoid them because I'm so busy that there's so many other monsters to hunt that trying to hunt some of these other things, I'm like, I'll pass on that. Because sometimes it's, and also too, a lot of them it is a very Japanese based game, so there are a lot of Japanese more centric styles and trends that I'm not as aware of, being an American. But I like that I can go in and I can just at any point, whether it's today, whether it's next year, I can do those same quests to get the One Piece armor or the Mega Man suit or something like that. Whereas, like I know the Aloy quest was only timed, and a lot of these festival events that have these particular quests are timed. And being a father, and I'm sure a lot of people listening are parents, it's harder to find times to play when you got kids. Sometimes you can play with them, but you need, when you only got a week to get something done, that week goes by very quickly.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, one of the things that we also like to do here on Dark Station with our top 5 lists is we like to kind of shine the spotlight on one of our favorite games that we've played that didn't come out this past year but came out previously. What's your favorite game that you played in 2018 but is actually from at some point in time before?
That's an easy one. It is Blood Bowl 2. It's for those who aren't aware of Warhammer or that whole Games Workshop, it's basically best way to describe it is rugby with football-ish rules set in Warhammer fantasy. It's I play on the PS4, but it's available on 360, Xbox One, and PC. And the reason I love it so much is because I found a league to play in, and I play with a bunch of guys. A lot of them are over in the UK, and it's a lot of fun to just jump in, and it's violence-based, but it's a turn-based strategy game, so it's, it exists on the tabletop as well. But I love Blood Bowl 2. I love, I chat with guys, and there's so many diverse races. If anyone knows anything about Warhammer, you know that it gets very complicated to explain. But I love Undead, and I have those guys in there. I fall in love with the Nurgle team. And there's a lot of different play styles. Like, my Nurgle team is more of a defensive, let them make a mistake, and then pile on. There's also the elves who are quick, fast, and can score crazy fast, good. There's humans who are the always ever jack of trades. But just joining those leagues and playing, and you see these matchups, and you get to learn the players, and it's just that strategy of, figuring out how do you beat not only my opponent, but the dice. Because, like all tabletop games, it revolves a lot around luck. And I got a little mad yesterday because I had some pretty bad luck in my game. Unfortunately, I lost, but I still had fun.
That's always good. I think it's a sign of a good sports game, which this is a sports strategy game, I guess.
Yeah.
But if you can lose and still have fun, then it's a good time.
The trick is you got to find A, the little things, and B, you got to remember that for every bit of bad luck happening to you, it's going to flip and you're going to have all that good luck and someone's going to be on the other side of it. And that's what helps me, because I've had plenty of games where everything went my way and I dominated, and then 2 games later I can barely even get a player to move 2 squares without falling on his face.
Well, Ed, any final thoughts about either Monster Hunter or Blood Bowl before we move on to the next section?
The big thing I'll say is that for those who have played Monster Hunter World, if you own a Switch, I highly recommend giving Generations Ultimate a chance. It's very different. There's a lot of things that have changed. The armor sets are different. Some of the weapons work is different. Even the map and the amount of monsters is different. But there's a lot of content in there. There's a lot of, being on the go is also a lot of fun, because I can pick up and do a quick hunt while I'm waiting, for something. I picked up my phone today and I was able to play a little bit there. It's a lot of difference, but there's a lot of online help, and it's one thing the Monster Hunter community has taught me, is that the online community for that game is huge. I've actually got an app on my phone that allows me to look, tells me all the information I need about monsters, weapons, armor, skills, all these different things. There's so many resources out there to help you. So if you're able to, get it. It's different. It'll take some time. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to look up some things. And, be prepared. Go in prepared, and you will take out everything from the Tetsukabra to the Alterion to the Narcacos. Probably pronounced that wrong. But definitely give it a shot.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks, Ed, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Talk to you again soon. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome back to the DarkCast, everybody. I'm Jonathan Miley. Joining me today is David Silbert. How are you doing, David?
I'm doing well, Jonathan. How are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. I'm glad to have you on the show. This is really great doing the Game of the Year stuff. We've had multiple people first time on the show, and hopefully they will be returning voices in the DarkCast throughout 2019. It's been exciting to meet new people.
Yeah, no, it's funny. As soon as we started recording, now I suddenly got kind of nervous, but no, hopefully this will be good. I'm excited to chat.
Don't be nervous. We're just two people talking about video games. That's all this is. If anything happens, we just leave it in post. It'll be fine.
That's excellent. Sounds good to me. Yeah.
Well, we're here to talk about some of our favorite games of 2018, and what have you picked to talk about?
Yeah, so I picked Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Okay. Not necessarily because it's my favorite game necessarily of the year, but just because I was kind of floored by how much I did enjoy it, especially going into it for the first time, Now,
what is your kind of experience with Assassin's Creed before Odyssey?
Yeah, that's a good... So I think I've dabbled with almost all of them. I started with the first one. Played through the entirety of Assassin's Creed 1. Played all the Ezio games. Touched on 3 a little bit, though I kind of stopped midway through, and then I've just played... Every now and again, I've picked up an Assassin's Creed game and probably put it down just because they've gotten bigger and bigger, and it's been tougher to... Black Flag, I really enjoy that game. Never came close to finishing that, for example. Syndicate, I heard great things about. Never really finished it. So yeah, and I skipped Origins entirely. I'd been meaning to play it, but I was,
Somebody actually gave me a copy of Origins, and
really?
I played through the beginning where you're like fighting a dude in a sandstorm, and then you come out to this small town, and like the first time you open the map, like there are immediately so many icons on the screen. I was like, oh no, turn off.
Immediately done.
So I went back and played some more, and it's really funny. There's a conversation between me and Alan, I think it's episode 3 that people can check out, where it's really funny. We had the exact opposite experiences with Origin and Odyssey, where he was just continually confused by Odyssey, but he fully understands the story and like motivations behind characters and everything in Origins, and I couldn't tell you anything about Origins. I went on to play to the point where you get to Alexandria and you meet your wife, but I know nothing. I was so confused by that game, and I'm not sure why. And on the flip side, I have no idea how Alan is confused by Odyssey, because it feels incredibly straightforward and understandable to me. So it's really hilarious. But so what are some of the things that make Assassin's Creed Odyssey one of your favorite games of the past year?
Yeah, I think the important lens to look at when kind of assessing this game is, as somebody in the working world now, like I'm recently out of college, but I've been working for a little bit now, and one of the main things that's been, I hesitate to call it like a plague, but like one of the things that's been hindering my playing through of games and my backlog and things that come out during the year is just how little time I have now that I can devote to games throughout the week. So it's a lot of it's working. Usually on the weekend I have maximum something along the tune of 5 to 10 hours to play through something, and a lot of that time gets sucked up playing something like Hearthstone or rounds of Smash Brothers or whatever. And I think what I really appreciated about Assassin's Creed Odyssey was just how quick everything was, like how almost arcadey the game feels. If you compare it to a game like Red Dead, where Rockstar was going for that immersion of skinning a deer takes 30 seconds because you're in the shoes of Arthur Morgan and that's what's going on. Right. Whereas you're looting something in Assassin's Creed Odyssey and it's instantaneous. It's like you pick it up.
I don't think there's even an animation for like picking
there's no animation. They don't,
yeah, that's actually on Dragon Age Inquisition. Yeah. There's a mod to remove animations from looting stuff. Yeah. And just like auto take everything, because you're going to take everything anyway. Like, why do you need to press 2 buttons to take everything? So you can just be like running through the field and just like continually pressing A or X or whatever the button is to loot something. And that way you don't have to like stop, bend down, open up a chest, have a menu, press the button to take everything. And that's fantastic. So yeah, totally agree. That is wonderful. Everything. I mean, it makes sense in Red Dead. Like, I can't say that they should not do that. But for the most part, everybody should have no loot animation and auto take everything.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like, it feels like, I don't know if it was the same thing with Origins, but I know it just feels like Ubisoft, they knew going into this, like, we're not going to go for necessarily the most realistic games. Although, like Assassin's Creed, typically they do have a little bit of that realism, the historical moments or riffs on historical moments.
And in Odyssey, you do fight a Minotaur that has been created from a magic, sphere of ancient technology. So I feel like we can just stop pretending that we're trying to be realistic.
Exactly. And while at it, why not have horse, have your horse steer like it's a car in Grand Theft Auto and just plug in a waypoint. Say, I want to go here, and you can let your controller go. The horse is just going to, like, steamroll on a road towards it. It's like the complete opposite of Roach and The Witcher and other games like that. It's so much easier. And I don't know, it really appealed to me. I really like that.
Yeah, sure. Sure. Have you beaten the main game in Odyssey? Or
that's the other thing about it is, it's tough in a fall season where a lot of great games came out to go through all the content in Odyssey. So I haven't actually made it to the end, and I know it's like a 60-plus hour game, something to the tune of that. But I've been just sucked up playing even just the mini side quests, the daily quests that pop up, telling you to sink X amount of ships or go and talk to this person. And I feel like there's a good mix of fetch quests there, but there's also, I'm surprised by how much they've managed to seamlessly bring in dialogue into even those daily missions. So everybody's voiced. It doesn't feel like you're just, like, it doesn't really feel like necessary padding or filler. I don't know if you felt the same way.
So I haven't really played with any of, I did some of the daily quests at the beginning because I didn't realize they were daily quests.
Sure.
And I did several of the, like, you'll see icons where it has it looks kind of like two paths diverging. It'll have like two arrows pointing in opposite direction. I don't know if I'm not seeing that correctly or what it's supposed to be.
Right,
that's what it looks like to me. And then there are a few other, the marker is usually like a black diamond with like an eye in it or something like that.
Yeah,
I pretty much completely stay away from those because the first few that I did not enjoy. Because they're kind of fetch questy.
Yeah,
and I feel like I've just played too many RPGs where it's like I don't want to do any of those. Now, if you have a gold marker above your head, I will come talk to you and I will do what you ask me. Even though half of those quests are fetch quest, it's like wrapped in a greater story.
Right.
And some of them lead to some much bigger stories. Like there's two quest lines that I really adored on the kind of west or east side of the map. There's Ebia and Mykonos, where they have like island-wide quests, where it's not, in something like The Witcher or something like that, you would have like a single quest line that kind of carries you through. And this, like, you get a quest and it ends, and then you get a new quest. It's all part of the same chain, but the game doesn't actually make it part of the same chain, which is a little odd. Like, one of the reasons that Odyssey is not actually on my top 5, it's in my honorable mentions, is the way that it's an RPG is kind of broken. You can tell that this is a studio that has made many open world games and makes like good action games. Like, combat is fun. But as far as some kind of like traditional, just like RPG quality of life things, it's just not there. Like the way that when you talk to somebody and they give you a quest, it doesn't automatically like assign that quest as your active quest. You have to pause the game, go into your quest map, find it, select it. That's really dumb. And there's the way that like loot is doled out, the fact that pretty much everything is at your level or only one or two things above. You never have like loot to work towards, I feel like. And so while it's nice that they let you upgrade all of your loot to like keep it with you, it's also ridiculous how many resources are required to keep that stuff at your level. So it's really just better to get whatever is newest and then abandon it immediately as soon as you get something slightly better. Which, that's the way a lot of games go, but usually you have something, you've got an axe or you've got like some shield or whatever the case may be. You've got something you're working towards. Like eventually I'm going to reach level 52 and I'm going to be able to use the crap out of that weapon and I'm excited for it. And the way that it's doled out, you're always just getting stuff you can use now. And again, like that makes sense from like an action game, but as far as RPG goes, like I'm like, oh man, I wish I had stuff that I could look forward to more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that totally makes sense to me. I didn't really think about that until you brought it up, but I definitely see, it does seem like there's not, I don't know, one game that I like to think about, and a game that I certainly think Odyssey took a lot of inspiration from, was like Zelda Breath of the Wild, and how there's always a new place to explore, there's always something new to discover. One of my problems with Breath of the Wild, though, is that feeling that all the weapons are kind of expendable. They're going to break at some point. You're going to have to, you're not going to ever get some kind of crazy new thing outside of what's related to like the Master Sword or the, your Hylian shield. Odyssey, I guess it's kind of similar when I think about it like that, where you don't ever get like a level 99 weapon and this huge legendary that you're working towards. But I do think it's still kind of addictive to find, I don't know, maybe part of the reason why I like going through the fetch quests, even if they are fetch quests, is that there's always that kind of adrenaline of, wondering, am I going to get like a legendary weapon? What kind of rewards am I going to get from this? And I guess even if it's not quite that, that quality of life RPG standard that we have with Witcher in terms of how, detailed the quests are and, how detailed the world is, I do think that you take the gameplay fundamentals that Assassin's Creed has always had, and then you add this new rich layer of RPG light, for lack of a better term, onto it. And I don't know, it made an interesting mix for me as somebody who just didn't play the first one with Origins. And, when playing through, it was something where, am I going to say it's necessarily, I had a better time with it than a pure RPG game like Witcher, or a pure action game like Red Dead, or open world game like that? Maybe not. But something about it just struck me as, wow, like, I don't have a lot of time on my hands. I can just jump into some time playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, run around the map, doing some, flipping up to the Icaros, the bird in the sky,
right?
Plug out a hideout, do some kind of like Far Cry-esque stealthing around and looting and all that kind of good stuff. And just like, it feels almost to me that it brings in a lot of the interesting parts of past Assassin's Creed game. That's the other kind of part of it to me.
Sure.
Maybe even aside from the role-playing aspects. If you think certain Assassin's Creed games kind of, I know naval combat started with Assassin's Creed 3, and then it kind of was a question of whether or not it was in or out for certain games, like Unity, I don't believe used it, but then...
Didn't know.
And Syndicate didn't either, but then Rogue had it. So it almost like we split off into a timeline where you had games like Black Flag that were these sprawling worlds where you can have a ship and you're exploring and doing all this good stuff. I think it's cool that Odyssey has naval combat, an expansive open world, but it still has some of that Assassin's-ish stealth that we had from the first game, or
sure.
It feels like it's made a nice mix of good and new and old, I guess.
Yeah. One of the things that I actually really like about it is there's enough skills in the game that I think after you reach level 50, you continue to get like levels, and you could get all the skills if you wanted to.
Right.
But for the most part, like, you're actually having to pick and choose how you want to play. It's not like, really one of my only complaints against the Spider-Man is the fact that the way its skill tree works is you're not choosing how you play Spider-Man. You're really just picking the order that you're opening up these abilities.
Right.
And it makes sense. All of those things are things that like Spider-Man should and kind of could do. So it makes sense in that game. It's really just kind of a personal preference of how skill trees work for me. But one of the things that I like about this one, and one of the complaints I've heard about this game, is the fact that, you can't be a stealthy assassin anymore. It's all about the combat.
Right.
It's like, no, that's not true.
Right.
I can assassinate like everybody.
Yeah.
It's really like the elite guards that are like 2 levels above me, I think, or more, like those are the people I can assassinate. But
right.
because I put my points into the assassin's tree, and because I like gear my gear towards the stuff that gives me assassin like kill buffs or whatever, however it terms it.
Right.
Like I'm really good at being an assassin and like dropping on people and killing them in one blow. So the fact that I'm able to kind of like build towards that is great, and that's one of the things that I really like about it, because I can be stealthy, I can hide in the bushes, I can assassinate that guy, I can throw my spear and like chain link like 5 kills in a row, and it's really satisfying to do.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it takes a lot of interesting elements of different Assassin's Creed games and different games outside of the genre that I just didn't anticipate going in. And I think that's just, part of why I was maybe just surprised. Maybe part of it is just the surprise of picking up an Assassin's Creed game and telling myself, I had never really thought of this series as being, I don't know, Game of the Year worthy, or, I mean, of course they're AAA games, but I never really, I think outside of maybe Assassin's Creed 2 and Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, I never really thought of the series as, these are potential Game of the Year winners. And playing through Assassin's Creed Odyssey for me, I just feel like I could get lost in that world, and there's so much left to discover. It remains to be seen whether or not the game gets a little repetitive going on, because I think I've played something around 20, 30 hours. And so there's another, half plus, maybe triple the amount of time left to go with the game. But just based on what I've played, I just feel like it's something special that fans of the series will enjoy, something special that even if you haven't played an Assassin's Creed game, if you liked a game like Witcher 3, you like a game, even if you enjoyed Red Dead and you're looking for something a little more quick pace or whatever to get through when you're in the holidays, might be worth picking up.
Absolutely. Well, one of the other things that we like to do with our top 5 list is kind of shine the spotlights on one of our favorite games that we only just now played in 2018, but is from sometime in the past. What is your pick for favorite game of 2018 that was actually not released in 2018?
Yeah, so this was a pretty easy pick for me. I went with Hollow Knight, the Switch port, because, and I guess it's just, technically the Switch port came out in 2018, right? But
sure,
Hollow Knight proper came out last year, and I remember it was one of my most anticipated games last year. I remember every Nintendo Direct, I would be like, what, trying to make predictions. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Oh, Team Cherry is going to finally announce the release date for Hollow Knight on Switch. Like, it's going to happen. And it never happened. And I had my guard down finally this E3 when finally during the Direct they say, oh, and Hollow Knight available now. And I think I just completely lost it. I was like, oh my God, it's out now. I have to play it. And you know what? I really enjoyed it. I mean, I think there were a lot of good Metroidvania games that came out this year, and many of which I haven't had the chance to play, but games like Guacamelee 2, Roku's Island Express, that made my honorable mentions just because it's, a shake-up of pinball in Metroidvania. There were games like Chasm, which I reviewed for the site, which I wasn't super fond of, but, there were just a lot of, different Metroidvania experiences that came out this year, and none had the scope, the scale, the personality, the charm, the mystery behind it and its world and the characters that, Hollow Knight just really delivered on all fronts with that for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I played that I think I got it on PC.
Right.
And I've not finished it. I've not gotten anywhere near finishing it.
Yeah.
I've pretty much given up on it because it is. So there are certain games that have a particular brand of difficulty that I really jive with, and I love everything about this game except how hard it is.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what boss I got. So you go to like a broken down castle, like way.
Yes.
I mean, obviously all of the game is way underground.
Right.
But maybe it's the Soul Master. I think that might be.
Was it a mandatory boss?
Yeah, it's a mandatory boss. It's one of the ones that you. I think it's the one that gives you the ability to do like a slam on the ground.
Okay.
And like I was able to tackle a couple of the side bosses that you don't have to do.
Yeah.
And I love like the way the game controls. The music is just like audibly gorgeous.
The music's fantastic.
But like I got to this boss and I don't know how many times I tried, but I was just not able to meddle my way through it. And I appreciate that game from afar now.
Sure.
It is great, but it is not for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny though because I don't really consider myself to be this is not me bragging about my skills or anything like that, but like I don't really consider myself to be that searching for that hardcore kind of gameplay experience. Like I love Bloodborne, but I really didn't click with the rest of the Souls franchise. Like those games just really aren't for me. But I mean, in many ways, you can see the influence of a game like that on Hollow Knight. But for whatever reason, I came into it and thought to myself, yeah, this game is challenging. But thankfully, I guess through the various charms you can equip and many of the routes. I guess what I really appreciated about the game is it's possible to play the game according to you. It almost feels like a Breath of the Wild, like that formula matched to a 2D Metroidvania game, because you can unlock items in certain ways, and that unlocks certain zones before others, and so you're able to kind of go around the map with your own agenda, and based on your playstyle, you might unlock something before a friend of yours might unlock something at a different point in the game. That kind of struck me as interesting, especially given how kind of vast the world is, and this game is like a 40+ hour experience that, at least in my opinion, didn't have a lot of filler. Not a lot of repetition of enemy types, not a lot of repetition of bosses.
No, you're constantly finding new areas, new enemies, new.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the other thing that I feel like I have a hard time with the game is that, like, you're never just fighting one enemy for too terribly long. You're constantly facing a new challenge.
Yeah.
And, when a game kind of throws the same enemy at you for a while, you're like, oh, I got this.
Right.
And I think kind of maybe the way the game is structured, you mentioned, the Bloodborne kind of Souls angle, where you die, you go back to a bench, and then you have to retrieve your whatever the experience in the game is. I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think because you can kind of replay areas because of dying, you could get really good at one particular enemy type. Whatever its difficulty is, like I'm finding other things just a little too hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that is an excellent game, and I would highly recommend anybody play it. If you like Metroidvania style stuff, and if you like Dark Souls or Bloodborne,
absolutely,
give it a shot.
100%.
Awesome. Well, cool. That does it for this part of the show. Any final thoughts about either Assassin's Creed or Hollow Knight?
No, other than everybody that listens to this should consider playing both.
Awesome. All right, well, thanks, David, and we'll be back in just a moment to talk about more of our favorite games of the year.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Welcome back to the DarkCast. I'm Jonathan Miley. Joining me is John Kay. How are you doing, John?
I'm excellent. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be doing Game of the Year stuff. We took a break last year. We are back though, and I'm excited for the new format to hear from a bunch of different people on some of their favorite games of the year. So I think this is going to be really fun.
It's that time of year again, isn't it?
Yeah, it came by quick, or came up quick, or whatever the correct verbiage is there. But it's here now. So what are we here to talk about, John? What?
I don't know when the top 5 gets posted, but spoiler alert in case you haven't seen it yet, it's Don't Starve Hamlet is my favorite game of the year. So it's actually DLC for the game Don't Starve.
Nice. You were actually talking about that last time you were on the show. That was
right.
About to come out, and you were excited to get your hands on it. So sounds like it didn't disappoint.
No, it did not disappoint at all. In fact, it's very impressive how they took this, it's almost 5 years old now. They took this old game, and it's had a DLC. It had a multiplayer DLC as well. And
right, I remember there was Don't Starve Shipwrecked, Don't Starve Together. I feel like there was one or two other Don't Starve expansions.
They've had a lot of special events in Don't Starve Together. Similar to what, say, Blizzard would do on Halloween with World of Warcraft. So they've had a lot of content like that. So they've provided excellent support for Don't Starve Together. And I figured the game was pretty much completely played out, and then they kind of announced this surprise DLC, and it ends up they managed to squeeze another few dozen hours at least out of the game. It's fantastic.
Awesome. So what is Don't Starve Hamlet?
Would you want to say what Don't Starve is first, just for those who...
Sure, yeah. If somebody's never heard of it, go ahead. And what's the breakdown of Don't Starve?
Don't Starve is kind of in some ways, a typical survival crafting strategy game. You collect resources from the environment, you craft stuff, and then you craft workstations so that you can craft better stuff, and you craft weapons and armor to defend yourself from increasingly difficult enemies. And really, the goal of the game is in the title. Just don't starve and see how long you can live for. And it ends up being a pretty difficult task, even in the core game.
So what is your record for not starving?
Oh, I think 250 days. And after that, I kind of just would usually get sick of that one world and then start a fresh world with a new character. I think I still have those old worlds kind of lingering around if I ever want to pick them up again.
Okay.
But, no, it's possible to make it that far once you learn the tricks.
Gotcha.
They have seasons and they have tons of hazards, and just about everything in the game kills you the first time that you experience it because you don't know how to deal with it.
Okay. Well, so what does Don't Starve Hamlet do? Does it recreate the Shakespearean play, or what's going on?
It's kind of a Shakespeare-themed DLC, so it has a lot of Shakespearean references in its humor. So you meet a lot of pig characters, And
Okay, those two things don't necessarily go together.
right. Well, I think, Hamlet, i.e., Hamlet, pork. I think that might be it. And also, one of the new game mechanics is a village with an economy in it. So I guess Hamlet kind of has a double entendre.
Okay, we're going like triple
well.
meaning here.
Right.
We got Shakespeare, we got pork, we got town. I like it.
Right.
That is economic use of words.
Yes. And so the characters in the game they've added all kinds of pork-related twists to Shakespearean quotes. For instance, I bite my thumb at thee becomes I bite my hoof at thee. Things like that when they're attacking you.
Okay.
The poop in the game they call plop instead of poop. So they call it plop. And you can earn money by cleaning poop off of their doorsteps. And they will say, out, damn, plop, instead of out, damn, spot. So there's all kinds of little humorous references like that.
Okay.
And so it's probably the funniest that Don't Starve has been. And they've also...
I was going to say, I've never played Don't Starve, but I haven't heard of it being particularly hilarious.
Yeah, it's kind of lighthearted and dark at the same time. So it's I'm trying to think if there's an analogy I can make maybe with movies. But it has a lot of kind of dark humor to it, the dark part being just how brutal the world is and how strange and difficult it is to survive, and all of the hybrid creatures that they have in the game. For instance, there is a creature called the koalefant, which, as you might expect, is half koala bear, half elephant. It's this creature that you can kill. It's actually pretty tough to kill, but you get some pretty good resources from it. They have a lot of creatures like that.
Nice. I like koalefant. That's a good name.
And in somewhat of a weird example of genre mixing, they also kind of added these Indiana Jones style tombs to the so you wouldn't think those things would fit together, but it actually fits quite well.
Okay.
So they have these rainforest areas where some very Indiana Jonesy music, kind of this ominous music similar to what would have been in the opening scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark. That kind of music plays in the rainforest, and then you find these ruins and you go and you plunder relics and sell them for money.
Very cool. Very cool. So aside from, just kind of reinventing an old game and adding all this content, kind of what makes this your game of the year?
Well, I think it's, like I said, I like the humor a lot, but I think what's amazing about this is that they managed to add game mechanics that change the survival strategies that you've come up with over however many hours you've played the other games. So just about any evergreen game, whether it's a survival game or maybe if you play a game like Civilization, you kind of hone in on some strategies that you play with every time. And the game plays out somewhat different, but even after 200 hours, just about anything starts to get repetitive in some way. And they managed to do more than put a fresh coat of paint on it. They managed to change up the game enough to where it plays different, and you have to invent new strategies for surviving, and I really like that. I think that's pretty brilliant that they managed to do that after all of this content that they've come out with.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, one of the things that we like to do with our top fives is we always write about one of our favorite games that we played that came out before whatever the year is. What is your pick for favorite game released before 2018 that you played in 2018?
I actually had a harder time with this than I did with the top five list for this year. And that is like that now because I love to get all my games on Steam sale, so I end up playing the previous year's games of the year always in subsequent years. But
Sure.
I loved Prey. I thought that game was excellent. I loved Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Or wait, Rise of the Tomb Raider. Rise of the Tomb Raider. I get my Tomb Raiders mixed up, but the one I picked was Legend of Grimrock 2.
Okay.
I think that's one of the best sequels ever made. And I didn't really like the first one that much, so I kind of almost didn't play this one, and I ended up thinking it was just fantastic game, beginning to end.
Interesting. I remember playing a little bit of Legend of Grimrock, and it's just not at all my type of game.
Yeah.
What does Grimrock 2 improve on over the original?
The first game was very much wore its old school dungeon crawling origins on its sleeve. I mean, it really made no apology about what it was. It was just a very old school grid-based game where the world virtually has no reason to exist other than to just give you hallways to walk down and treasure chests to find. And for this game, they actually set it on kind of this open world island, which that has to be the first grid-based open world game that I played, well, at least the first one that I've enjoyed. And that was a huge expansion in how the game works because it made exploration very fun. They still had all of the secrets in it, but now the world is much bigger and you can kind of go where you please, mostly from the beginning. I mean, there's still some certain things that you have to unlock, but I think the big open world was a huge addition to it, and they added that without losing any of the charm or the character of the design. So they did not skimp on world detail at all. In fact, I think they enhanced it even. They added even more world detail this time, more environments, more enemies, smarter enemies. So a lot of the little tricks that you would use in the first game did not work anymore in this game, so you kind of had to learn new tricks. New character types. I mean, it was just a massive expansion of everything the game did right, and then added some things that probably nobody expected.
Excellent.
And that's very impressive considering the praise the first game got. I think they could have gotten away with just pooping out a sequel to that game and calling it a day. Or at least they could have gotten away with it commercially, but they didn't do that at all. They really exceeded expectations with that game, I think.
I think that's one of the wonderful things about the indie scene, just kind of expanding as it has in the last, I guess, like 10 years now. People aren't worrying so much about selling 1 billion copies and making a ton of money. They're making a new game because they want to. And so a small team isn't going to make a sequel to a game that they loved just because, because they're going to make $1 billion. They're going to make it because they want to improve on what they did the last time, and so on and so forth. So that is good to hear. That is not something I will play, but I am glad that you enjoyed it.
It's money obviously is important in this as a business at the end of the day, but it's good to see that there are still people who get the business part and the love of the hobby at the same time. It's very encouraging to see that still can happen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, well, any final thoughts about either Grimrock or Don't Starve Hamlet?
No, I don't think so. I can't wait to see what games I missed this year that end up as the best non-2019 game of the year next year. I'm sure there's going to be plenty.
They'll all be on sale shortly, so don't you worry.
Yep.
All right, well, thanks, John, and we'll be back in just a moment to discuss more of our favorite games of 2018. Welcome back to the DarkCast. I'm Jonathan Miley. Joining me is Gregory Wright. Or is it Greg Wright? It's been a long time since we talked. What do you go by?
Oh, Gregory is fine.
Okay. How's it going?
It goes. Can't complain.
Well, it's good to hear. Well, we have a very important game to talk about today on our Game of the Year podcast here on Dark Station. What is that game, Greg?
Oh, I am just so honored that I get to be the one to talk about this too. Because it is blew my mind that nobody wanted to talk about this yet. And I mean, they were all being nice to me. I get it. Yeah. And I'm thankful.
They were paving the way. This is for you to talk about.
Oh, yes. Now. For good reasons. We have what I personally consider to be the game of the year, the fantastic God of War. The not even reboot, more like the continuation, the epic continuation of Kratos and his journey. Many people for many people, it's either this or it's Red Dead Redemption 2.
And they're both wrong, but that's okay.
Right. And then we have the contrarians among us.
No, we have the people that are right, and
that's the choice.
It's Spider-Man, so we can just lay that to the side. We don't have to argue. We can be friends. Everybody knows Spider-Man's the correct choice.
Oh, okay.
Anyway. But yes, epic continuation / reboot. I mean, I never really got into the previous games, and I feel like this has a pretty good, fresh start. I feel like there's a lot of stuff, if you're a part of the series, to kind of call back to, but also there's a reason they didn't call it God of War 4. And that's because it's also a good jumping off point or whatever the correct term would be.
Although
for a new person.
Many people do call it God of War 4 just to differentiate it from the first one, you know?
Sure. I like to call it God of War. Combine War and 4. Yeah. Yeah, if it was all uppercase letters, then, we could do the terrible thing of replacing letters with numbers and have it be W4R. And be, real cool. Which I think if God of War 4 came out when the original God of War came out, then that's exactly what they would have done.
They absolutely would have. But yeah, Kratos is a little less edgy nowadays, which is a good thing overall. He's kind of toned down quite a bit on the anger.
Still very angry though.
So when he gets pushed, it will come out. But he has to be pushed this time, at least, instead of just, automatically erupting into it, killing anything and everything around him.
That is true. He actually has, a range of emotions. It's not just angry and angrier.
Right.
There's some somberness in there. There's some sadness, some quiet times. So what makes God of War your game of the year?
Part of it is exactly what you said. There's some range of emotions in there. A big part of it, I think lots of people like it because they grew up playing the previous games, and there's a few of them. There's at least 4 on the consoles, and there's a couple on the handheld systems. And everybody's kind of seen the arc that Kratos traveled, and so yeah, to see him rebooted like this, The biggest thing, when I first heard of this game, is that he's in a new land, and that means a whole new pantheon of gods. And what do you think Kratos is going to do with them? Right? So you already get this joy in you. But he's actually grown up with us. Yes, he was a man, had a family, went through horribleness, took his revenge. That's a lifetime. But he's really kind of matured after all this time being away. He's more in control of himself. He has a better range of emotions. The people that were playing those games back in the day, we're more adults. We have a better range of emotions. His story arc in this game, especially with his new wife. I mean, this shouldn't be a spoiler. I consider anything in the first 10 minutes of a game totally not a spoiler. His new wife is dead.
Right.
And he's got to take care of this kid. Lots of us didn't have kids back then, and lots of us have kids now. I think that helps. The transformation, the maturing, and it doesn't hurt that the story itself is just fantastic.
Mm-hmm. At being a father, how do you feel the kind of writing and acting and everything captures both the Atreus as a child in the game, and then also Kratos as a father?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. They kind of rushed, and I mean, this is, comparing a lifetime with kids growing up to a video game, of course, right? But they kind of rush this kid through like the adolescent phase a bit, and kind of angry at your parents, kind of mad, kind of, I know what's best, why don't you let me do things my own way? And of course, as we both know, like, all kids are stupid, right?
Absolutely.
They kind of rush that a bit, but they get a lot of it right, and it's even worse because Kratos doesn't feel like he deserves this at all. Like, he knows his past, and it just haunts him. And so, like, he will know, like, a moment will come in the game, he will know that what he needs to do is to reach out and just show a little love to his kid. And the game it's just so well paced and so well acted that he will reach out, and Atreus will be looking away, right? And he will stop himself from putting a hand on his boy.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, you can just feel, it's weird because you can't feel anything, of course, but you can just feel the heartache that he's going through as he just can't bring himself to do it.
So do you think that's because he feels like he doesn't deserve this relationship? Like, he with all the things that he's done, he doesn't deserve to be in a loving relationship with a son that appreciates him or something like that? Or what do you think is going on?
Yeah, he doesn't
through his head.
It's like he's afraid of relating to him, or reaching out, or showing that type of emotion. Like, he's unsure of himself.
Okay, that's fair.
And of course, there's the what makes this the game of the year is the boy jokes, right? all that is balanced out with 10 minutes later he's going, boy, instructing him to do something. It's right. Fantastic.
It is. How do you feel about the shift in perspective and the change in combat?
Oh, yeah, that needed a facelift for sure. Like, there's definitely less weapons. The later God of War games were getting really heavy on the weapons. Like, I actually replayed God of War 3 not too long ago. He had the blades and I can't remember the name of them, but they're the gauntlets, the lion gauntlets, Nephian lion or something like that. I can't remember.
That sounds good to me. I don't know.
He had a third set of blades, and he had a scythe in there somewhere. Like, it was too much, and each of them had their own moves, and it was good enough. It was cool. But this axe, man, this is an axe. Like, you can summon it back to your hand like Thor's hammer. Mm-hmm. If you can freeze things with it, you can hold it in place. You can summon it back as enemies are coming at you. So, I mean, you essentially have, I don't want to spoil things too much, but you only have like 3 sets of weapons this time. And they're more in depth. I like the combo system a lot better. The axe in and of itself is just like the greatest weapon ever. You can equip things to it that change what it can do. It has different pommels, different runes you can etch into it. They gave God of War a lot of RPG mechanics to kind of spice things up. Like, Kratos himself levels up. Your gear levels up. You can put things in your gear. It's not too in depth, but it lasts throughout the game. It'll take you to the end.
So, crazy question. If this game did not have the Leviathan axe, if it just had the normal chains of chaos, blades of chaos, whatever those weapons are called, right. If it was just, same perspective, same tone, everything else is the same, but he didn't have the axe, do you think this would be Game of the Year?
Oh boy.
I'm not saying that to detract from the rest of the game. I'm just, I think the axe is
hard to imagine
the best part of the entire game. Yeah,
because the axe is involved in the puzzles. It's I think it's so much of who he is, which is crazy. Probably, I'm sure they could make something like the thing that makes the axe so good in reality is how much planning those developers put into not only like the combat, but how the axe affects the rest of the world. Thus, you see the puzzles, the fact that it can return to you. Like the amount of detail they put into that axe is what makes it. And honestly, if they took that out, like they would just probably, knowing them and knowing the amount of detail they love to put into this thing, they would probably put something in that we would just love just as much.
Okay.
So I'm going to say yes.
So I know you don't want to spoil things. I feel like, we're far enough into the year that if we have some light spoilers, that's fine. But are you a fan of the twist at the end that involves a certain, character and a certain name? And we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. It's it doesn't make too like you gotta stretch mythology out a little bit to put Kratos pop center in the middle of it.
Sure. But even with stretching Norse mythology that way, I feel like Santa Monica paid a lot better respect to Norse mythology than they ever did to Greek mythology.
Yeah, you could say that. I enjoyed the twist. I also particularly enjoyed his nightmare at the end, where Thor comes knocking. That was fantastic. I really don't know how they're going to play out that twist, but they have this machine that can make you travel in between realms. So like I feel it could go any number of ways, to be honest. But it was a pretty good twist. I spent a lot of time with this game. I do the walkthrough writing stuff as a hobby. This was the first one I did for the year.
Nice.
So way too much time I've spent with this thing, probably 300 plus hours. I really like they have that one area, the challenge area, the challenge realm. I forget which realm they put that in.
Which one, the fiery one or the pestilence one?
The
pestilence
one that
the
drinks
bog or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge. The fire one is challenging too, because there's once you beat the normal trials and you beat the game, they unlock the Inferno, the extra hard trials. Those are hard.
Okay, I never got to those.
No, they are rough. Yeah, it gets hard.
I never beat the final Valkyrie.
Oh,
so
yeah. Those Valkyries were, like, for being an optional boss, those Valkyries were A+ material, too.
Yeah.
A good little addition to it's kind of open world, but not really, especially contrasted to, like, probably Spider-Man. I haven't played Spider-Man, but I imagine that's pretty open.
Sure, I would call God of War a connected world, or even like an interconnected world, because there are elements where it's relatively open, but
you just don't
never
get access to everything.
Right, and it never really feels quite like a sandbox. It just feels like everything is contiguous, and I feel like that's a good feeling. I actually really appreciated that. I played God of War and enjoyed its open world at a time when I was really tired of open worlds. So I think that actually did a lot of a good thing with having that style of world.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes too much can be overwhelming, like the Assassin's Creed games.
Oh, yeah. For some reason, I'm liking Odyssey, but those games have terrified me for years.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, well, one of the things that we like to do with our top 5 lists is a favorite game from before 2018. What is your pick for this year?
I picked Super Mario Odyssey for the website because I never played that game until like the beginning of this year.
Nice.
Boy, I'm sure if I went and looked back, I could go pick something more unique or indie, but I'll go with it. I had a fantastic time with Odyssey. Like I don't play a lot of those Mario platformers at all.
Mm-hmm.
So like the last one I played was 64. So it's been a while.
That's quite a jump.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But
That's okay. I went from Mario 64 to Mario Galaxy 2, so almost the same jump.
But yeah, I mean the new the hat mechanic, just brilliant. Plus, it let them do a whole bunch of unique things with the different characters you could possess. Just fantastic. And the platforming is really tight, which is, for those type of games, that's what you need.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, Gregory, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about Mario Odyssey and God of War. Hope to have you back on the show as we go into 2019.
Absolutely, and hopefully we'll get to see some previews of the next God of War.
Hopefully.
I mean, I don't expect it to be out or anything, but
no,
they could totally give us some teasers. Plenty of Norse gods to look forward to. And more importantly, more Mimir.
Yes.
Tell me he isn't the best thing about that game.
He is. I could actually do with Atreus, dying of whatever and disappearing and Mimir just being your sidekick, and I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, yep.
Maybe a contrarian opinion, but he's the true sidekick.
If I had to choose. If you're going to force me to pick one of them.
I am. That's what we're doing. Hard choices here on the DarkCast today.
Yeah, Mimir, all the way.
Fantastic. All right, man. It was good talking to you, and you have a good one.
Yep, you too. Take care.
Well, that does it for our first Game of the Year 2018 discussion. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Remember, you can check out more information about the games that we discussed on darkstation.com, where you can find reviews, previews, and features, including our writers' top 5 list that'll be going live throughout the month of December. For more information about the podcast, be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter at darkstation_com, find us on Facebook, and email us at podcast@darkstation.com. For Ed Bobincheck, David Silbert, John Kay, and Gregory Wright, I'm Jonathan Miley. Thanks again, and until next time, have a good one.